Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back with you in my own space. So let me see some indication that you guys are here. Okay. Let's see, 10 persons, 11. Okay. So, all right, that is open. I just like to be sure everything is cool. You can hear me loud and clear. You can see me clearly as well. I verily doubt that we can possibly be having the usual network challenges today. So let me hear you. Where are my congregants? Oh, at least if you go church, pastor say amen, you say amen. Aha, I see you now. My mama 147, Jimmy Dibe. All right, guys. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be back with you. And it's even particularly more satisfying to be back live and in my own space. It's good to see you. So let's settle down now. You know the drill. Before we go into this morning's service, and I'm going to find a name for this. I think I want to start calling it something like Liberation Hour or something along those lines, you know. But before I get into that, let me speak to two things that particularly bothers me. Things brought about by last week's events. The continuing killings, the mindless slaughter of fellow human beings. Let me not even speak to whether they are Nigerians or Hausas or Igbos or minorities, Christians or Muslims. I am particularly troubled and pained by the mindless killings. It's almost like some people believe that they must advertise their bestiality, and it's not enough to just take life. They do so gruesomely, as if to make a point about the devaluation of the victim's very humanity. And how you do that without devaluing your own humanity baffles me. And in the midst of these mindless, gruesome, wanton killings, I have to balance all of these with the knowledge that the National Security Advisor of the Nigerian state considers these persons to be our brothers. Or is it only his own brothers and they are not brothers to the rest of us? Because I don't understand how brothers slaughter brothers in the manner that we have seen. I really cannot understand how the army man would talk about rehabilitation of bestial criminals. And let me be very clear about something. If I, a Yoruba man, since we reduce everything to ethnicity, if I, a Christian, may logically say that these are not my brothers, let me put myself in the shoes of the man in Kankara, the Fulani man himself, in the heartland of Katsina. Would that man consider these terrorists his brothers? Is this what we've been reduced to, where those who are meant to guarantee the lives and properties of Nigerians are now reduced to explaining and excusing evil? When Look, I don't want to spend my time in lamentations, but it is critical that I speak to these things in order for you to see that when you speak to the arrogance or the impunity given to a particular ethnicity, you must understand that it is not that ethnicity that takes the benefit of the impunity. It's a class. The murderers are nobody's brothers. They are only the brothers of those benefiting from this evil system. So when you hear your national security advisor and other persons who are meant to be responsible for your security excusing, explaining, remember what Barra just said. This same APC is responsible for sponsoring this terrorism. So this same APC are the ones explaining the evil that they should not only be condemning but eradicating. So there is a synergy, an evil synergy that is created by those who should be at the forefront of providing security to Nigerians. So when you hear these things, hear it with the understanding that as evil as these things are, as bestial as they are, as criminal as they are, the system benefits from allowing these things to happen to me and you. When we get into this morning's message, we will speak more in detail to the subject that I have raised. But you need to understand that all these things are connected. They are not isolated evils. They are connected. It's all the same fabric, maintaining a system that is designed to be governed by impunity. The second thing I want to speak to this morning is a subject I've written about in the past. At his infancy, it was Professor Oshibajo that I saw exhibiting it. I didn't immediately recognize it for what it was, but I remember when I witnessed that situation, it must have been in 2016 or maybe even 2015. It was very early in the life of the Buhari government, and the Buhari regime had not fully exposed itself to but the discerning were already clear about what we were dealing with. Oshibadi was asked to represent Buhari at the NDA passing out ceremony. And as I observed him, I was compelled to write an essay that is inside Do Not Die in Their War. I titled it The Genius, the Liar, and the Teleprompter. He just didn't seem like the man I knew. He wasn't as fluent as he would ordinarily be. The Oshibajo that I knew who lectured me was a very brilliant human being and he's still very intelligent. But on this particular day, he was delivering an address at the graduation and he wasn't able to speak as fluently as I knew him to be. So I penned that essay. If you have time, go read it. But he was speaking to how if a man who is ordinarily very skilled, Osinbajo is one of the finest orator you would ever come across, and he was tumbling over this speech. So I recognize the fact that it was because he had to lie on behalf of the administration he served. So the lies were not coming off his tongue in the manner that you would ordinarily have expected of Osinbajo if you knew him prior to his becoming a politician. Let me just leave it at that. And then I saw the same thing happened again at Lekki Toll Gate when my former boss, the last man who ever paid me a salary, so at least I knew him at some close quarter, BRF, when he was playing Sherlock Holmes, Inspector Gadget at the toll gate. And then I spoke for the first time, I spoke specifically to the spirit of Ahithophel. And then I saw Boala and his interview on Al Jazeera. And I realized that I need to speak to this so that It will not seem like I didn't notice it. I noticed it. But pity Daniel Boala. Pity him. Because the reality is that it's not about intelligence. However intelligent you are, when you're compelled to defend a lie, you are necessarily exposed as a fool. What you saw with Daniel Boala was exactly what you saw at Lekki Toll Gate. And it was exactly what I saw when I was writing that essay. No matter how intelligent you are, the moment you queue behind a lie, what happens is that your wisdom is turned into foolishness, pretty much in the same way as it happened with Ahithophel, when God turned the wisdom of Ahithophel into foolishness. So you will see more foolish persons in the lead up as we go forward. You see multiple persons whom you had considered intelligent human beings, people who had impressed you with their intellect, and they will come out and they will speak and they will reveal themselves as fools. It's not that they suddenly became stupid overnight. It is the fact that having to deny what is obvious is the same thing as denying God, because God is the God of truth. So when the truth is self-evident, when God has already revealed himself in a situation, when the truth is so self-evident that you cannot deny it, but you are still lying about that thing that is not deniable, it is at that point that you realize that the person has been fully Ahithophelized. So pity Daniel, the son of Wala. Don't deride him. Pity him and then learn a lesson from it. It's a teachable moment for those who believe themselves incapable of surviving without the largesse that typically comes with public office in Nigeria. So you find men who once stood for the truth becoming men who hate their own vomit. You can laugh all you want about Daniel. You can make fun of Reno. Yeah, by all means, laugh at them, but never forget that what has turned them into objects of ridicule is their inability to govern themselves. If they had found the grace to govern themselves, they would not be found in a situation today where they are forced to deny themselves the very words behind which they had killed. They are having to eat them. What if you die the day after? Well, as somebody has described it, Reno has been handed a virtual death sentence. You send a man to Mexico after he had been busy running his teeth about drug cartels. Oh, well, you had better make sure that that one has a lot of bulletproof cars and vests in that place that he has gone to. But whenever I speak to these things, let's understand very clearly. I only speak to them so that you understand that a window has been opened into how Nigeria operates. Take a look and look behind the veil. What you're saying is not just Daniel, it's not just a mockery. Your pastors, yesterday's heroes, it's the same thing happening to them to varying degrees. The moment you begin to deny the self-evident truth, you become an object of self-ridicule. It's not even another person ridiculing you. It is you ridiculing you. So that is that. Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock now. And I think we should start what I'll find a name for. But certainly, let me be very clear. Religions call you to salvation. They tell you, come to church, come to the mosque, follow Allah, follow Jesus Christ, and then you go to paradise. However they describe that paradise. I believe that in the absence of purpose, abuse becomes inevitable. So it is critical that we understand the purpose for what we're doing. I believe, and I've said this many times, but it bears repetition today, that in the absence of a revolution, we're going nowhere. But I am also conscious enough to know, just as Nkrumah has already said, the revolutions are brought about by men of action who act as men of thought. So it is critical that if I desire change, I must be willing to conceptualize this change, explain it to the persons I expect to work with, and that is you who is listening to me, whether now or in the future, whenever. It is critical that we understand that the totality of what is being done, everything that I do, everything that persons associated with me are also doing, they are being done designed to bring about change. So now, I don't have a religion to call it. It's not a religion, but it's about liberation. So we'll probably start calling it the liberation now because I've been doing this for some years now and we'll keep doing it. Now, the Citizenship Project, which is the title of my lecture this morning, is a call to a revolution, is a demand to turn away from our current realities. So when I say the Citizenship Project, let me be very clear. It is because I believe that if we can evolve citizenship as a common purpose pursued by all of us, regardless of where we come from within the Nigerian space, regardless of our ethnicities, of our religiosities, if we as a collective pursue together the demand that we be treated as citizens in this country, then we will not be where we are. So, having given you a theoretical framework for what I'm looking to do, I'll now try to break it down one by one so that we understand ourselves, understand what is in front of us, and understand what must be done. So when people talk, and most of you will be wondering, I carry a Nigerian passport, I even have my NIN, and you would always be saying, I'm not a citizen, I'm not a citizen. What am I? Everybody everywhere will say you're a citizen of Nigeria. I'm filling forms. It says citizen nationality. I say Nigerian. And you are still saying I'm not a citizen. Yes, you are not a citizen. Words have meanings. I've made strenuous attempts to explain some of these things to you in the past, and I'll give you a word, for instance, the word bogus. In Nigeria, we use the word bogus to mean big. Oh, he has a bogus house. Oh, the cloth is bogus, means it's bold, colorful, Nigerian English. But the native speakers of English, the English people, everywhere else around the world except Nigeria, the word bogus means false, a lie. But in Nigeria, it came to acquire a completely new meaning. The word nice, oh, he's a nice guy. Once upon a time in English language, that word meant to be stupid, to be a fool. That was what that word meant in Old English. Over time, it evolved and it came to mean generally good guy. So today, you say a person is nice, all of us accept that the person is nice. So words evolve. But there are certain core that must never change. When you say somebody is a citizen, the first thing you must understand about citizenship is that it comes with value. It is not just a word. It is a word that says that this person is a national of this state and he has the protection of the laws of that state. It evolved in the Roman season, in Greco-Roman season. It is interesting to note that not everybody who lived within the walls of a country back then of the city-states were citizens. You had to purchase citizenship, or you inherited it, or you gained it by conquest in one way or the other. There were persons who were not citizens and who were not slaves. The Paul of Tarsus story is familiar to those of you who are Christians. When he was going to be whipped, he came out and he said, look, I'm a citizen of Rome, deserving of the protection of the law, and you simply cannot whip me without a trial. It simply means that a citizen is a person who is protected by the laws of a state. When the state has reached a level of evolution and development, the same protection afforded the citizen is afforded to everybody within the state insofar as it relates to the protection of lives and properties. There might be rights reserved to citizens that are unavailable to the resident or the visitor, but at the height of citizenship, when the state has evolved, you find the same protections available to citizens, available to everybody. Because how do you begin to determine who a citizen is? In the split moment when you need to take decisions about their humanity. So citizenship is not just about carrying a piece of paper. It's about the level of evolution and development that a society has enjoyed to the point where it's capable of providing protection for everybody within its geographical space. And it's not just protection from physical harm. It's about protection to allow them to aspire to be the best they can possibly be. That is who a citizen is, a person protected by law. But look at Nigeria. In Goza and many other parts of the Middle Belt, the Southwest, the Southeast, Nigerians are being slaughtered on a daily basis. On a daily basis, the Nigerian is slaughtered. He's hunted in his bed. He's slaughtered in his bed. He's killed on his farm. And the Nigerian state has abandoned him even when he has become complicit in the evils that has overtaken the Nigerian victims, who are euphemistically referred to as citizens. So, how did we get to this place? Let us understand something. Even though I speak in a moment, I understand the fact that I am also speaking to the womb of time. Could very well be that it might be 10 years from now that somebody is going to have to sit down and listen to some of these things. So I'm speaking deliberately into the womb of time. I'll go on a little excursion to just explain how we got here. Citizenship is essentially, as we know it today, is a foreign concept. Because it was when you began to move from a place of serfdom to a place of freedom, quote and unquote, that you begin to talk about citizenship in the sense of the European or the Americans. The African, we were already higher than citizens before the white man came into our land. Let me explain myself. I am a Yoruba man. Yorubas were so evolved that we had clear understanding of equality of humanity. Yoruba proverb says, "Ibita bi eru la bi omo, ibi o yato sira won." As we birthed the slave, so was the freeborn also birthed. No two births are dissimilar. That is a Yoruba scripture. Yorubas would also say, "Baba ntori eru shofin, karanti ojo ti o momo joye." When you make rules because of the slave, remember the day when the rule would apply to the children of the titled. That is Yoruba jurisprudence, the understanding very clearly that we are all equal. That is the Yoruba understanding of the world. Our obas were limited in the things that they could do to those you will call citizens today, who were simply human beings. Even in Yoruba mythology, human beings are created equal. There is no divine birth except to the Orishas. No divine birth of any sort. Every man was created equal to the next. And this was generally the situation all across the southern part of Nigeria. I've already spoken extensively to the level of feudalism that existed in what you call northern Nigeria today, but that is not what is particularly important here. What is important is this. Those who have given us this concept of citizenship, that have locked everybody together in the place called Nigeria, and that have tolerated the evil that has overtaken the victims of Nigeria, providing excuses, providing explanations, providing diplomatic cover for all the evil that has overtaken us. Let me say this very clearly. Slavery never ended. All that has happened is that a system has been built where you have overseers overseeing the Nigerian plantation and ensuring that we are kept in line whilst our human and material resources are continually exploited. So what has evolved in Nigeria is anything but citizenship. The British never spoke to us as individuals. They spoke to their agents or persons they had defeated, obas, kings, obis, emirs, and they aggregated all of us. Our free will rarely ever consulted. None of us were consulted. Kill a few, sign a treaty with one Oba here, and that Oba suddenly spoke for everybody in the space that they had simply drawn at their table during the Berlin Conference. That is how we got here. This town union, that town union, one politician, that politician, pre-independence, this, pre-independence, that. All of a sudden, we're all Nigerian citizens. But the question is this: how are you citizens in a place that is not ruled by law? Because citizenship is speaking essentially to the supremacy of the law over all the person within a particular space. The centrality of the rule of law to the concept of citizenship means that in a place where you do not have the rule of law, you cannot have citizenship. You may have anything else, but you simply cannot have citizenship. Nothing like citizenship can be found in a place where the whims of men rules ahead of the rule of the collective, which is the rule of law. To make the Nigerian a citizen, a few things have to happen. One, his will must prevail. And how is the citizen's will expressed? At the ballot. One of the very first things that you would have seen done is the fact that rigging has now been front-loaded. The Nigerian judiciary that is essentially complicit in the imposition of a non-democratic order in Nigeria has now been given even more power to do exactly what it had always done: collude with the ruling class to ensure that change never comes. Now it doesn't matter if a man has a criminal record by law. You can no longer make it an issue at the electoral tribunal. Now it does not matter if a man forged his certificates. Now it does not matter whether you vote or you do not vote. It doesn't matter. It simply does not matter. So as long as that is the case, but it matters that you paid your tax, and if you don't pay it, it's deducted at source. Security is outsourced to the Americans. Taxation is outsourced to the French, but you are citizens. Nobody is consulting you. Even when it comes to the security, I doubt that many of us would bother if they would even outsource it to the European Union and everybody else and ask them to come and open bases in Nigeria. That is how degraded the sovereignty of the Nigerian state has become, simply because the Nigerian is not a citizen. If we were citizens and the aggregation of our citizenship is what is expressed as our sovereignty, we will not have the mess that we have in front of us. So, what you have in front of us is that we have an inevitable liberation struggle, but it must be understood that the real liberation is the one that moves us from our current state, where we are not protected by law, to the state where the aggregation of our will becomes the basis for the expression of our sovereign will. And then we are able to move. If you're thinking that I am being alarmist, let me remind you that one of the first things that defines a state ruled by law, one where citizens are legally protected, is that the judiciary is vibrant, independent, gives hope to the common man. The Nigerian judiciary is hopeless. It is so hopeless that it would sentence a man to death simply because he defended himself on his farm against a terrorist. The state, the judiciary that should be the last hope of the common man, and the common man is still a citizen in a sane society, that judiciary sided with the terrorist. It took the umbrage of people who really don't care much about us for this state to grant a pardon. That is exactly how useless our judiciary is. In a place without citizenship, you'll find that it's completely impossible to find value for democratic choice. So there is a complete absence of democratic choice. No election in Nigeria is determined by the people. None. None whatsoever. Is either the rigging had been front loaded, or the economic rights of the people have been so undermined that they think nothing of selling their votes in a democracy. Or where they insist on voting, you have thugs coming in under armed escort. Even policeman at the polling station is unable to do anything. That does not happen in a place with citizens. That happens in a place where the people have become defeated even in their own mind. I have a dear friend, Obinna. He posts as he posts as Jonathan Buhari Tinubu, and he sometimes lives in Cameroon off and on. He shared a story recently how the Cameroonians were grumbling because their NEPA seized power, and when they were grumbling, the people, he now asked them, why are you grumbling? Now it's normal. Now he said, yeah, it's not normal. They told us they will be cutting power, but they will restore it after 30 minutes. And it was already extending beyond 30 minutes. Cameroonians were conscious enough of themselves, of their own humanity, of the level of responsibility owed to them by those who purport to rule, that they will not even countenance light being taken for more than the pre-advertised 30 minutes for maintenance. That is a society where the balance of relationship is properly defined, in spite of the fact that me and you will bleat about how Biya has been in power for almost 40 years or whatever. It's been in power for that long, but the people still remain cognizant of their rights in that society, to the point where they did not allow themselves to give up the right to hold government and power to account. Those are citizens. What happened to us? When you look at the priorities of the government in a place, you will know whether the people are citizens or serfs or subjects or members or whatever else you may care to call the Nigerian. What are the priorities of the government? In a country where you have over 30 million young persons who are not in schools, those are people between the ages of 5 and 14. They are not in any school anywhere. Even if you claim, as I sometimes believe, that Nigerians are being miseducated and our educational system is unfit for purpose, at least there is a minimal attempt to miseducate. In this case, you've got 30 million who are not in any class anywhere, who are receiving no training anywhere. So it is critical that we understand that a government that looks at this and finds no urgency in ensuring that this is turned around. And remember, the road did not start with Bala Blue. It's been existing for years. It's only exacerbated in the last 10 to 12 years since the APC government came into power. Those indices have been multiplying many times over simply because nobody is even pretending. Now remember, vast parts of Nigeria cannot even afford to let children go to school because when they go to school, they get kidnapped. They get kidnapped, government pays ransom or does not, ignores, lies, pretend that nothing is happening. They lie brazenly that nothing is happening, and then you find terrorists posting TikTok videos to disprove the lies being told by the government. This is the situation we have found ourselves. The future is being lost, even as with data. Let us be clear about one thing. When you find a political class that is so estranged from the ruled, there can't be citizens in that space because the citizens are the employers of the rulers. If the citizens have lost the power of censure over the rulers, they cannot be said to be citizens. If you've taken away their capacity to say yes or no to your remaining in office, how do you call those people citizens? How? In the absence of standards, impunity has overtaken the land. Impunity, crass impunity, the kind of impunity that happens when a people have lost all need to either respect or fear the law. That is the level of impunity that you find all over the place. The electoral process is useless. Everything has been turned upside down. So here is what I am thinking when I spoke to the Citizenship Project. It is critical that we as a collective understand that we cannot liberate ourselves in silos. We must act in concert, understanding the urgency of the need to turn around. We need to understand the urgency of the need to turn around. Michael Carney, the Canadian president, prime minister, I think, said something that is very instructive. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Me and you, as a collective, we are on the menu. And the most unfortunate part of the whole thing is that those who have us on the menu are themselves on the menu. It is our rulers who have positioned us on the menu. And they are themselves on the menu. But it is me and you who we need to save us. And this is what I'm thinking. I would offer suggestions, provide leadership where I can, but you cannot have a liberation struggle of Voltrons. You, as an individual, wherever you are, you need to work for your own liberation. The Voltron you're looking for is right inside your mirror. First, seek common goals. Create communities. I told you last week, I'm repeating it again. We are building a website. The website would have the capacity to register you in your state. It would have the capacity for you to give you assistance in organizing yourselves, even at ward level. Whilst we are building, you start talking to yourselves. We must organize ourselves behind set agenda and goals. When I was speaking with you last week and I spoke about the revolutionary pathway, I think. Yeah, yeah, I believe that was topic for last week, something along those lines. But this week, I'm telling you that we are starting the Citizenship Project. It's a political thing. It's not agitations alone. It's political. All of us must identify what is in our common interest. Those things that are in our common interest are the things we are now going to organize ourselves behind. All I can do, all the collectives I'm putting together, all the people I'm working with can do is offer leadership. We can offer guidance. We can offer, let me go as far as to say this. We would offer a restructuring plan and we would offer a political program. We must organize ourselves. We don't have trade unions again. I've already told you this. We must become the trade unions. So, citizenship as an idea is the antidote to the bad idea of feudalism that governs Nigeria. Let me repeat that for you to understand. I've spoken extensively to the fact that Nigeria has evolved as a feudal state. Feudalism does not have room for citizens, it has room for members. That's why you have the ruling class, the people who serve the ruling class, and the serfs. At the bottom, those are the people who get trampled over. And that is what is happening to us as Nigerians. That is the idea of feudalism. It's not about the Fulani, even your governor, whether you are Yoruba, Igbo, Ibio, Anang, whatever you be. There is hardly any part of Nigeria that is not already governed by feudalism. That is the thing that we have evolved. The Fulani hegemony that governed Nigeria came out of the cocoon of feudalism, and that feudalism, that virus, has already overtaken the entire country. Nigeria has become a feudal state. I have spoken to this too many times. So, if you want to counter a bad idea, what you do is that you come back with an idea that is a better idea and that is more likely to lead to the outcome that you desire. The bad idea governing Nigeria today is feudalism. That is the one that has allowed all the evil that you are looking at. It's permitted, it's allowed. Sometimes it is even deliberately engineered and factored into the system to keep you distracted. Weaponized ignorance, weaponized poverty, weaponized religion, all of these work to preserve feudalism. If you're looking for somebody speaking Fufude, before you understand that your governor is a feudal governor, your local government chairman, your judges, all of them, your legislators are feudal representatives. If you need to open your brain to understand the fact that the only antidote to feudalism is citizenship. Citizenship means the rule of law. Feudalism means there can never be a rule of law in your country, only the administration of impunity, which is what is happening right now. Please be clear about this. Only a superior idea takes away a bad idea. America killed Khamenei. America and Israel have murdered untold numbers of Iranian generals and spiritual leaders. But look at where we are. The Iranians are still functioning. They're stronger than ever. America is never going to be able to effect regime change. Why? Why? Idea. The power of ideas. Whether you agree with the idea of the Islamic revolution in Iran or not, the reality is that as an idea, it has survived multiple American presidents. And even now, in spite of the brutal killing and bombing, they still stand. Whether you agree with it or not, I am trying to point out to you the power of ideas. No matter how brutal the opposition to an idea may be, if an idea endures, it is because of the strength of the idea. Killing the ideologue even strengthens ideas. The only thing that militates against the power of feudalism is citizenship. It is not by accident that the concept of citizenship evolved only after the serfs had assured the passage of the Magna Carta, which was the beginning of the recognition of individual rights in Europe. It is not by accident that in Nigeria we're still talking about human rights, because human rights are demanded where citizenship rights are non-existent. We don't have any citizenship rights. That is why we are demanding human rights. It is in finding that collective capacity to speak that we can become citizens and move away from being victims. Because as things stand today, the Nigerian is merely a victim. The most painful part of the whole thing is the demand for patriotism. How do you ask a man you have refused citizenship rights for patriotism? How? You want me to be patriotic, but you treat me less than you treat the next man. Nigeria is not a place for the faint-hearted, but it is also a place that offers multiple opportunities. I can never be as rich as Dangote again in my life. There's nothing I do that will bring that kind of money and I don't desire it. But I can go down in history as one of the fathers of the Nigeria of our dream. And so can you. You can become one of those who ensured that a country was battered out of the mess that our country currently is. There are multiple roads to the market. Yeah. There is only one way to defeat feudalism, and that is by becoming citizens. I said a long time ago, and I shared it freely, that there is only one bullet by which you can slay the evil monster called Nigeria. And what was that? The truth. I said it long ago. Only the truth can kill the monster. Over the years, we've established that. Now let's establish clearly. Only citizenship can tame the beast of feudalism. Feudalism operates on impunity. Citizenship endures on the foundation of the rule of law. That's what I'm calling you to. Look in your mirror if you're looking for a Voltron. There are no Voltrons coming. Me and you would have to do the hard slog. I'm doing my bit. We'll make an email address available during the course of the week. If you are able to volunteer skills, we'll be happy to have your help in however you are able to offer your skills or your volunteer. We don't want any money from anybody, but we do want your capacities. We would also be happy to know where you're watching from, and if you'll be willing to be part of the coordinators in your local government, in your state. But be clear about one thing: the walls are falling. We have to build them ourselves. This is where I say bye bye to you for this week. Um, you have my word before we meet next week. An email, like I said, would have gone out. You can give us your feedback. I have the assurances of the tech people building the website because of the demands we've made of them in relation to for it to be interactive and be able to take details and offer information. I've been assured that it will be ready by the end of this month. You must understand that this is a new effort. I had to abandon the old one that I started with Mr. Lawal. He's been indisposed, so I had to start afresh. But we'll be done, and be assured that that will be ready for all of us before the end of. I will put the email address out on social media, so everybody will see it. You'll be able to offer us your suggestions where you have technical skills that can, because the most important thing is that we must be able to communicate with ourselves. We must be able to disseminate information. We must be able to have forums where we can argue, listen to each other, take suggestions, and just generally organize ourselves. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your week and stay safe, please. Do stay safe. And whatever you do, don't paralyze yourself. It's the road to Ahithophelization. All right. Oh, and safe journey, brother. What's that one's name? Daniel the goat. No, no, no. That would be Reno the goat because they say more Omokri na goat. Then they call Omokri. I think that's in Urobo language. Good night, everybody. Bye bye. Be good.